You may think your life is shaped by the choices you make today, your goals, your ambition, your discipline. But the truth is far more subtle, far more powerful, and far more hidden. The reality you live right now was written years ago, perhaps even decades ago, in a script you never consciously chose, a script created before you were even old enough to understand you had the power to reject it. This invisible blueprint, as Owen Hermstring calls it in The Law Behind the Laws, is the collection of beliefs, emotions, associations, and energy patterns you absorbed from your environment in early childhood. And it doesn't just sit in the background. It shapes what you see, how you react, and what you unconsciously expect from life. Most people think they're living in the present, but they're not. They're living inside a subconscious pattern that was installed when they were 5, 7, or 10 years old. Imagine a boy who grows up watching his father fail repeatedly, hearing his mother cry about unpaid bills, and feeling responsible for keeping peace in a chaotic home. That boy becomes a man, and consciously he wants success, freedom, maybe wealth. But every time he gets close, he sabotages it. Why? Because deep in his invisible blueprint is a line that says, "If I succeed, I betray the people I love. If I have too much, I will lose connection. If I win, someone I care about must lose." These aren't conscious thoughts, they're coded frequencies, energetic beliefs. Hermstring writes, "Your childhood was not just a stage of life, it was your original programming interface. Every word you heard, every emotion you felt, every look you received from the people you trusted became a line of code running your adult operating system. And unless you examine that code, you'll keep reliving the same patterns, the same loops, the same results, no matter how many books you read, how many affirmations you speak, or how hard you work. The invisible blueprint is not always about trauma or drama. Sometimes it's much quieter. It's in the moments when your emotional needs weren't met, when your creativity was dismissed, when your pain was minimized, when your joy was too loud. These moments create a quiet shame, a subtle belief that something about you must be hidden to be accepted. And here's the catch. Whatever must be hidden becomes the very thing blocking your manifestation. That's why Owen says, "The law responds to the full vibration and not the spoken desire." You don't attract what you want. You attract what your subconscious is willing to receive. So ask yourself, what scripts did you inherit? What laws were whispered, never spoken? Maybe you were taught that people with money are cold, that success brings isolation, that being loved means being small, that being seen means being in danger. These are the codes still running your life. That's why change often feels like sabotage. The moment you step into a new frequency, a new behavior, a new opportunity, a new relationship, the old script starts pulling you back. Not because you're weak, but because your subconscious is loyal. It believes it's protecting you, it believes the blueprint is safety. But there's good news. Just because you didn't write the script doesn't mean you can't revise it. Hermstring outlines this in the book. Awareness is the scalpel, intention is the pen, energy is the ink. When you bring consciousness to the code, it begins to unravel. And when you speak a new truth with emotional authority, you begin to install a new law. The invisible blueprint is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to rewrite it if you want to change the outcomes of your life. And rewriting doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with awareness, with asking, what do I believe about myself that might not even be mine? What fears am I living by that someone else handed me? When you start to see the script for what it is, a past survival strategy, not a present identity, you unlock a power that most never touch. The power to respond to life from choice, not conditioning. The power to align your current desires with a new frequency that the universe can finally recognize as authentic. Because the law doesn't respond to the version of you you pretend to be. It responds to the real you, the one vibrating beneath the script. And when you bring that version to the surface, reality starts to shift. Not because of magic, but because of alignment. You're no longer trying to attract a life you subconsciously reject. You're creating one that feels true, whole, and finally, yours. It's one of the most frustrating cycles in human behavior. Just when things begin to improve, you ruin it. You land the job and miss the meetings. You meet someone kind and start picking fights. You start making money and suddenly overspend. You finally feel seen and then withdraw. It's not coincidence. It's not lack of discipline. It's not because you're broken. It's because there's an inner thermostat that was set long ago. and success threatens to overheat it. Owen Hermstring calls this energetic recoil. In The Law Behind the Laws, he explains that our subconscious is not wired to move toward pleasure or progress. It is wired to maintain familiarity. And whatever you experienced most consistently in childhood, whether it was chaos, criticism, scarcity, invisibility, or rejection, became your inner normal. When life begins to rise above that emotional baseline, your subconscious interprets it as danger, not reward. Think about that. You could be stepping into the life you prayed for, and your subconscious is sounding the alarm. Hermstring writes, "Success is not received by the conscious mind. It is tolerated or rejected by the subconscious, based on whether it matches your identity code." In other words, it doesn't matter how many goals you write down. If your inner script says, "I am unworthy," or "I am the helper, not the one helped," or "good things don't last," then even the greatest opportunity will trigger a shutdown. That's why so many people confuse discomfort with growth. Real growth is uncomfortable, but not because it's painful. It's uncomfortable because it disrupts the emotional patterns your body was trained to recognize as home. If your nervous system was shaped by survival, then peace can feel boring. If you were rewarded for shrinking, then visibility can feel terrifying. So when success shows up and doesn't match the vibrational frequency of your self-image, you'll find a way to dismantle it. Not consciously, but energetically. It might look like procrastination, or sudden fatigue, or sabotaging relationships, or attracting new problems that match your old life. It might even look like getting sick or overwhelmed right as things begin to unfold in your favor. This is not bad luck. It's subconscious protection. Hermstring describes it perfectly. The universe will never sustain for you what your subconscious does not believe you're worthy of receiving. You can touch it, taste it, but you won't keep it, not until your frequency rises to match it. This explains why so many talented people plateau, not because they lack skill or vision, but because they haven't done the inner work to upgrade the subconscious permission to expand. Their outer life grows faster than their inner self-concept, and the result is an energetic collapse. But here's what's even more important. Self-sabotage is not a failure, it's a message. It's your inner self revealing what it still fears. And when you meet that fear with curiosity instead of shame, you begin to shift the blueprint. Start asking questions when you feel the urge to pull back. What part of me feels threatened right now? What success story am I trying to live? And what internal story is it clashing with? What identity must I release in order to receive this next level? Because the truth is, every breakthrough will ask you to break an old rule, a rule you didn't write, but have obeyed for years. Don't be too loud. Don't make more than your father. Don't outshine your siblings. Don't believe you can have it all. These rules aren't laws, but they live in your nervous system like sacred scripture. And unless you rewrite them, they will quietly override your progress every single time. That's why Hermstring emphasizes emotional regulation as a manifestation tool. Not just mindset, not just affirmations, but learning to hold the energy of expansion. To sit with the sensation of more without collapsing into fear. Because that's the edge where change happens. He writes, "Your next level is not waiting outside of you. It is waiting inside you, beyond the threshold of your last comfort zone. To receive more, you must become someone who can carry more, not in your hands, but in your frequency." So if you've been wondering why life seems to improve and then fall apart, stop blaming the world, stop blaming others, and most importantly, stop blaming yourself. Instead, look inward. Find the version of you that feels threatened by peace, love, power, success, and sit with them. Reassure them. Update their truth. You don't sabotage because you're weak. You sabotage because somewhere deep down, success feels unsafe. But when you learn to feel safe in expansion, everything changes. Not overnight, not with force, but with awareness, compassion, and energetic recalibration. That's when success becomes sustainable. That's when your subconscious stops resisting and starts supporting. That's when your life finally moves forward without pulling back. There's a contract many people are living under, but never signed. A hidden agreement formed not in logic, but in emotion. Not in adulthood, but in childhood. It's an energetic vow that says, if I keep struggling, I stay safe. If I suffer, I stay loved. Owen Hermstring, in The Law Behind the Laws, calls this the subconscious loyalty to struggle. And it's one of the most invisible blocks to transformation, because on the outside you're working hard, you're reading books, you're manifesting, you're taking action, but beneath the surface there's a deeper part of you that feels disloyal if life gets too easy. It sounds absurd, until you realize how many of us grew up witnessing pain being the price of love. How many of us saw people gain sympathy, attention, and even identity from hardship. When the people we loved the most only felt alive in the fight, our nervous system internalized. That struggle is how you earn your place in the world. Hermstring explains, we mirror the emotional language of our early environment, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. And nothing controls the subconscious more than familiarity. So what happens when you try to outgrow that struggle? What happens when your outer self tries to build a life of abundance, ease, and peace, but your inner self believes that receiving without suffering is betrayal? You sabotage, but not the kind of sabotage that looks loud, not the kind people notice, the kind that slips through the cracks, overcommitting, undercharging, feeling guilty when things go well, delaying joy, or carrying burdens that aren't even yours to carry. Because the hidden agreement is still active, and somewhere inside you're keeping a promise to someone who's long gone. Maybe it was your mother, who always worked herself to the bone. Maybe it was your father, who believed that success without pain was weakness. Maybe it was your culture, your community, your church, your family, environments that linked value to exhaustion. And so now, as an adult, you still believe that ease means you're doing something wrong. You still think you have to earn love by suffering first, and the moment something feels too easy, your subconscious flips the switch, pulling you back into the familiar. Hermstring writes, you cannot rise above a pattern you are still loyal to. Until you identify the agreement, it will override every intention you set. But here's the twist. These agreements weren't conscious. They were made through survival. You didn't choose them. They were coded into your being when love and pain arrived together. So the first step is not to force your way out of the struggle, it's to recognize the contract, to see where you're still honoring someone else's pain by replicating it in your own life. And then break it, not with anger but with compassion. You say, I see you, I thank you, but I'm allowed to do it differently now. This is where real freedom begins. When you stop believing that suffering is a badge of honor, when you stop carrying stories that aren't yours, when you allow yourself to be free, not just intellectually, but emotionally and energetically. Hermstring offers a powerful exercise in the book. Write a new agreement with yourself, one that reflects your current truth, not your inherited pain. An agreement that says, I no longer owe my joy to the suffering of my past. I'm allowed to experience love without pain, abundance without guilt, peace without punishment. I release the belief that struggle makes me worthy. I am worthy because I exist. You may not feel these truths at first. That's okay. The subconscious doesn't update through information alone. It updates through repetition, emotion, and embodiment, which means the more you live these new agreements, the more they take root. So next time you catch yourself feeling guilt when things go well, pause, ask yourself, who am I still trying to protect with this suffering? Then tell them, in your heart, that you're free, and so are they. Because loyalty to struggle is not love. It's trauma dressed as devotion, and you don't have to keep proving your worth through pain. Your growth does not dishonor your past. It honors what they couldn't finish, through you. You can break the cycle. You can rewrite the agreement. You can rise, not as a traitor to your roots, but as the evolution of them. And that is not betrayal, that is healing. You may think you are choosing your life, that your actions are your own, that your beliefs are shaped only by your decisions. But look a little closer. Look at the people you speak to every day. Look at what you hear, what you see, what surrounds you. And you'll begin to understand what Owen Hermstring calls the mirror effect, the silent force constantly reprogramming your subconscious without your permission. In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring explains that your subconscious is not a vault. It's a sponge. It absorbs everything it's repeatedly exposed to, especially the emotional tone of your environment. Every conversation, every complaint, every subtle expectation of others becomes a reflection of what's normal. And what's normal becomes what you unconsciously accept as true. So even if you consciously want abundance, joy, purpose, or love, If your environment constantly reflects fear, limitation, gossip, comparison, or cynicism, those frequencies slowly etch themselves into the background code of your mind. Not because you agree, but because your subconscious confuses repetition with reality. Hermstring writes, "You become fluent in the emotional language you hear most often, even if it contradicts your highest intentions." That's the trap. You can wake up every day telling yourself you're powerful, worthy, destined for greatness. But if the world around you speaks a different emotional language, your subconscious quietly translates it back into doubt. This is why people feel stuck even when they're doing the work. Why affirmations sometimes fall flat, because while they try to reprogram themselves for a new identity, their environment keeps reinstalling the old software, like trying to update your operating system while someone's sneaking in the back door and hitting undo every night. Think about it. You spend an hour reading a powerful book, but then spend 5 hours surrounded by energy that contradicts it. Which one do you think your subconscious will believe? Hermstring is clear. Your environment is not just a backdrop. It's a blueprint. It informs what your mind believes is possible, safe, or allowed. This doesn't mean you have to cut everyone out of your life, but it does mean you have to wake up to the silent power your environment has over your self-concept. Who are the people you spend the most time with? Do they speak possibility or problems? Do they celebrate growth or shrink in the face of change? Do they uplift you or reinforce your doubts with passive fear dressed up as realism? Every space you walk into is a mirror. It either reflects the future you're growing into or the past you're trying to escape. And it's not just people. It's the music you listen to, the shows you binge, the places you frequent, the voices in your social media feed. Your subconscious doesn't judge them. It simply records, "This is the emotional world I must adapt to." That's why Hermstring emphasizes not just protecting your energy, but curating it. He shares an exercise in the book. Do an environment audit. Walk through every area of your life and ask, what is this space teaching me to believe about myself? If your home feels chaotic, if your friendships are transactional, if your work drains your soul, don't ignore it. That mirror is showing you what your subconscious is being trained to tolerate. But don't just identify the toxic mirrors, start creating new ones. You don't need a perfect tribe. You need one voice that speaks the frequency of who you want to become. You need one space, physical or digital, that reflects your next level back to you. Because the subconscious doesn't need overwhelming evidence. It just needs consistency. A new pattern, shown often enough, becomes a new truth. This is why environment is destiny. Not because it determines your future, but because it shapes the beliefs that decide your actions. So if you've been working on your inner world, but still feel stuck, ask yourself, what is my outer world reflecting back to me? If the mirror shows fear, you'll stay cautious. If it shows scarcity, you'll stay small. If it shows doubt, you'll stay hesitant. But if it shows power, possibility, grace, you'll start to believe it's safe to rise. Your environment is always speaking. The question is, are you listening? And more importantly, are you willing to shift the mirror? Because the truth is, you don't just become who you are, you become what surrounds you. You think you're making new choices. You think you're building a new life, but behind the scenes your subconscious is quietly reaching for an old script, the one you've rehearsed 1,000 times, the same lines, the same fears, the same outcomes, and you don't even realize it's happening. In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen Hermstring calls this the repetition trap. It's the invisible mechanism that ensures your past keeps repeating itself, even when your conscious mind is desperate to move forward. It's not sabotage, it's not fate. It's memory, emotional memory, programmed through repetition and preserved in your subconscious like a trusted map. The trap works like this. Every thought you've had repeatedly becomes easier for the brain to think again. Every belief you've accepted, especially under stress or emotion, creates a neural groove. Over time, those grooves become highways. So when you're tired, triggered, uncertain, or vulnerable, your mind doesn't ask, "What's the highest version of me?" It asks, "What's the most familiar way I know how to survive this?" And suddenly, you're back on the same road, saying the same things, making the same decisions, attracting the same results. Hermstring puts it simply, the mind prefers familiar suffering over unfamiliar freedom. Because even pain, when practiced enough, becomes safe to your subconscious. It knows how to handle self-doubt. It knows how to handle failure. It doesn't yet trust success, peace, or abundance, because you haven't lived there long enough for those states to feel normal. This is the paradox. You can want change with every fiber of your conscious mind, but still be pulled back into the emotional, gravitational field of your past, because your nervous system believes that's where you belong, and the more you repeat it, the more convincing it becomes. This is the cruel brilliance of the repetition trap. It uses your own biology against your evolution. Neural pathways reinforced through years of repetition become more real to your subconscious than the affirmations you say once a day. That's why change often feels like swimming upstream. It is. You're trying to reroute years of unconscious programming with a few moments of conscious willpower. So how do you escape the trap? According to Hermstring, awareness is not enough. Interrupting the pattern isn't the same as installing a new one. Most people try to break the cycle, but they don't replace it with anything stronger. The key isn't just to stop the repetition, it's to out-repeat it. You must build a new script and rehearse it with more frequency, emotion, and embodiment than the old one ever had. That means catching the familiar thoughts before they take over. That means noticing when you're about to react the way you always do, and choosing differently, even if it's uncomfortable. That means living the identity of your future self now, again and again, until that version of you becomes more real than the past you've memorized. Hermstring writes, "You are not your patterns, you are the consciousness that can choose a new one." It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. Every time you notice the old script and refuse to play your part, you weaken the grip of the repetition trap. Every time you speak a new truth instead of defaulting to silence or apology, you strengthen the new neural path. Every time you stay calm where you once panicked, stay hopeful where you once quit, you reclaim your power to write a new ending. This is how freedom begins, not with one big decision, but with 1,000 small rewrites, moment by moment, word by word, until the script no longer pulls you back, because it no longer fits who you are. The repetition trap only wins when you let it stay invisible. The moment you see it, you can stop letting your past choose your future. The lines you keep repeating were written by a version of you that didn't know better. But now, you do. So write a new script, speak it, live it, repeat it, until your life no longer echoes what hurt you, but amplifies what healed you. Because the only way to defeat the past is to repeat the future until it becomes your present. You've moved cities, changed relationships, switched careers, started over more times than you can count, and yet somehow the same problems keep finding you, the same kind of partner, the same financial struggles, the same self-doubt, just dressed in different clothes. It's like life is stuck on repeat. Different scenery, same pattern. This isn't bad luck. This isn't coincidence. This is what Owen Hermstring calls the energetic loop. According to the law behind the laws, every human being emits a personal frequency, an emotional and energetic signature created by their beliefs, self-perception, and subconscious programming. This frequency acts like a magnet, attracting into your experience people, situations, and outcomes that resonate with the energetic message you're unconsciously broadcasting. So when you change your external life, without shifting your internal frequency, you don't truly start over, you just recreate the same reality in a new place. Hermstring explains, "You can't escape what you haven't outgrown. The world doesn't give you what you run toward. It mirrors what you are." This is the essence of the loop. Your reality is not responding to your conscious desires. It's responding to your subconscious identity. You can want wealth, but if you carry the frequency of lack, struggle will always find you. You can crave love, but if you hold the frequency of abandonment, you'll keep attracting people who leave. And here's the hardest part to accept. The loop isn't personal. It's precise. It's not punishing you. It's showing you, over and over again, what still needs healing, what still lives inside you, what scripts are still running your emotional system, not to torment you, but to awaken you. The loop keeps repeating not because you're cursed, but because your frequency hasn't changed. So how do you break the loop? Hermstring says, you must become incompatible with your old reality. That doesn't mean faking positivity or forcing optimism. It means going deeper. It means identifying the hidden emotional programs running your life, the unworthiness, the fear of being seen, the guilt around having more, the silent belief that you don't deserve ease. You don't break the loop by thinking new thoughts once. You break it by becoming a new emotional being. Because your energetic signature isn't just shaped by your thoughts, it's shaped by what you feel is true. That's why saying affirmations without belief doesn't work. You might say, "I am abundant," but if your body still holds the frequency of fear, your life will match the fear, not the words. Hermstring urges us to maim ourselves feel into the future frequency, to practice emotionally embodying the energy of the reality we want before it arrives, because only then can we become a match for something new. The universe isn't moved by what you want. It's moved by who you are while you're wanting. To escape the energetic loop, you must become emotionally allergic to the old version of you. You must stop feeding the narratives that keep your vibration low. Stop rehearsing the emotions that made the old life feel normal. Stop identifying with the energy of what you're trying to leave behind. This is not easy, but it is simple. Every time you resist the urge to complain, you shift frequency. Every time you hold a boundary you used to collapse, you shift. Every time you choose faith over fear, alignment over approval, creation over reaction, you're cutting a new energetic groove into your field. That's how the loop breaks. Not with rage, not with force, but with alignment. One new emotion at a time, one new belief lived consistently, one moment of courage where you used to fold. Eventually, your frequency will rise to a level where the old circumstances can no longer find you. Not because you ran away from them, but because you no longer vibrate at their level. Hermstring ends this section with a powerful line. You're not attracting the same things because you're broken. You're attracting them because you're vibrating at the same chapter. Change your frequency, and the story rewrites itself. So pause. Listen. What are you broadcasting today? What do your emotions really say about what you believe? What version of you are you magnetizing the world with? You are not stuck, you're just cycling. And once you become conscious of the loop, you get to step off of it and build a new frequency that leads to a new life. There's a reason you feel resistance when trying to change your life. It's not laziness, it's not weakness. It's because your entire energetic field is used to the frequency of your past. And freedom, true freedom, has its own frequency, a vibration that your nervous system may not yet recognize as safe. Owen Hermstring writes in The Law Behind the Laws, "Freedom is not given to you by others. It's not granted by external circumstances. Freedom is something you allow yourself to feel, and your frequency must rise to meet it." This is where most people get stuck. They think freedom is what happens after their circumstances change. But energetically, it's the opposite. Your circumstances begin to shift only after you raise your emotional frequency to match the energy of freedom. But what is the frequency of freedom? It's not just happiness or peace. It's a radical absence of inner conflict. It's the end of pretending. It's the courage to want what you want without guilt, to say no without explaining, to say yes without fear. It's walking through life without constantly editing your soul to fit someone else's comfort. That kind of freedom carries an energy, and that energy feels unfamiliar if you've lived most of your life tuned to the frequency of fear, lack, shame, or self-betrayal. Hermstring calls these emotional states energetic contracts. They are agreements we made, consciously or unconsciously, to stay small, to play safe, to belong through self-sacrifice. But when you begin to rewrite those contracts, you raise your frequency. And when your frequency rises, your life reorganizes around it. But here's the hidden truth. The old you will fight for survival, not because it's evil, but because it's familiar. Your mind doesn't crave happiness. It craves predictability. So the moment you begin to live from a higher frequency, choosing joy without guilt, setting boundaries without fear, expressing truth without shame, your nervous system will sound the alarm. This is unsafe, it will whisper. This isn't you. But that's the point. You're not here to protect the identity that was shaped by your pain. You're here to outgrow it. Rewriting the energy you live by begins with a decision to stop using your current circumstances as proof of what's possible. To stop filtering your identity through your past. To stop anchoring your worth in your struggles. Freedom doesn't arrive with permission. It arrives with practice. You practice freedom by refusing to shrink for approval. You practice it by not chasing what you've already outgrown. You practice it by feeling safe in the energy of expansion, even when it scares you. Hermstring says, if you want the universe to treat you like you matter, You have to stop acting like you don't. That means raising your standards, not just in action, but in energy. It means not entertaining conversations that drain your soul, not apologizing for the light you've earned, not waiting for others to see your value before you believe in it. When you begin living from the frequency of freedom, you stop negotiating with your old identity. You stop asking for permission to be whole. You stop trying to earn the life you were born worthy of. And slowly, the universe mirrors that back. Opportunities start arriving that feel like alignment, not struggle. People show up who meet you in truth, not performance. Situations unfold that don't ask you to betray your values. Because energetically, your life is catching up to the new vibration you're holding. Hermstring reminds us, you don't have to fix your entire life, you only have to stop pretending it's not yours to create. This is how you rewrite the energy you live by. You stop being a victim of your own frequency. You stop outsourcing your peace. You stop living in delay, waiting for something out there to validate your liberation. You start choosing it, embodying it, believing it, until it becomes your new baseline. Not a momentary breakthrough, but a sustained energetic identity. The frequency of freedom is not a reward, it's a responsibility. You must carry it, even when no one understands, even when the world still tries to put you back in your old box. Even when the fear says, you're asking for too much. Because when you no longer accept a reality that doesn't feel like truth, the universe has no choice but to respond differently. That is the invisible shift. That is the hidden law. And that is when life finally begins to feel like